Hello and welcome to a special little bonus episode of It's Just a Show. I'm Chris.
And I'm Charlotte.
We don't introduce ourselves in this show, but we thought we might this time because it's just
us, everybody. It's just us.
You know, once upon a time, a little show called Mystery Science Theater 3000 went off the air.
Oh, I remember this time, and I love it when you start a story with once upon a time.
Yeah, and then many, many years later, after there being no show, the people who owned the intellectual property of Mystery Science Theater 3000 thought, you know what, it would be great to get our brand back out there. And so they made a little thing that we like to call Mystery Science Theater 3000, the animated series, or as it was sometimes called, The Bots Are Back.
Oh, and an animated series? I mean, I think of this more as being like tiny little webtoons or something like that. Far more than like Batman, the animated series, where you could get like a Mark Hamill in to be Joker or something.
Yes, it is very much Flash animation. It came out once a week for November 2007 throughout that month, ending around Turkey Day, and then no more were made after those 4 episodes. It was posted to the MST3K.com website, I guess. It was removed in June of 2008.
Oh, it wasn't available for people to watch for very long at all.
No. And it is probably the worst received thing that MST3K has ever done.
Oh my gosh. I have to say, Chris, I don't know why they're perfectly fine little blips of the bots interacting.
They 1000% are not.
They're fine. They're not great.
They're not. They're simply not. You simply need to raise your expectations a bit here.
Okay, maybe I do.
They are not very funny. They are weirdly acted. They are ugly to look at, and no care or attention has been put into them. They have no charm whatsoever.
Oh, I found them more charming than you did, but I do have very low expectations for something that before I even saw them, I said the worst thing ever. I mean, they're not the worst thing ever. I hadn't seen them when they very first came out. Because I just wasn't still in that stream of MST3K, like really hungry for new content, right? Like I saw them now and they're fine.
They're not. I mean, they're not not offensive in this, except maybe for taste or comedy, but they're so...
I think maybe you're just being a little bit of a Debbie Downer on this one, but I have to say, clearly the fan base is behind you, Chris, because they agree.
All right, let's just compare. This was a cheap Flash animation thing, but perhaps you might remember a Flash animation show called Homestar Runner.
Okay, yes, of course, I remember Homestar Runner.
Now, you might think by looking at this that maybe this came out in the early days of Homestar Runner, when it looked very primitive, but charming, but very primitive, much like the MST3K animated series looks.
Sure. But it didn't.
Homestar Runner was basically done in its primary run by the time this came out.
Oh.
So like, compare how much energy went into those different things. Compare how careful they were with it. There's just so little going on, and it's so...
I agree. If this was something that was meant to be a get real excited about MST3K again, we're doing it in a different way, you guys are gonna love us. Like, it's not gonna do that.
No.
I'm watching MST3K and there's lots of stuff out there for me to watch. And oh, look, that's a cute little thing of the bots interacting behind the scenes without the host being there. It's just GPC talking to Tom.
Uh-huh.
That's cute. It's fine. But not as you haven't seen us for 10 years and you're not going to see us for another 3, but we'd like you to be excited about us. You're right. It's not going to inspire excitement on its own. It's a fine little, side dish in the middle of doing other things, but it's not a meal unto itself, I suppose.
Which of the episodes did you like best?
The one that I liked best was the one with Tom and GPC, where GPC said something and Tom's like, and when you say that, what I hear is this. And then she says something else. He's like, and when you say that, I hear this. And it's clear that GPC is slowly trying to back out of the room. And Tom just keeps going, which is very Tom.
Yeah. So GPC is working on like the thermal systems on the ship, and Tom asks what temperature it is outside. And then there's a whole bit about how, well, the temperature is negative 200 whatever, but it feels like negative 250 whatever. And then they talk about feels like. Why don't they just use that, the feels like, because that's what anyone cares about. So that's the bit, because that is not an observation anyone has made before. But
no, they don't need to make new jokes.
Yes, they do. Yes, it is very much their requirement in a comedy show to make new jokes.
Okay, fine. You're such a Debbie Downer. You're trying to make me think that this is terrible. It wasn't terrible. It was just fine.
And while you're right that is where the conversation ends, with Tom being a big blowhard and GPC walking away, and Tom sort of, when you say that, it feels like you're saying this to me.
Uh-huh.
The first half of the conversation is all GPC asking Tom questions like he's the authority figure in the room.
Sure.
Which was a vibe I didn't really care for. GPC is the authority figure in the room.
I mean, it's very kind of her to be letting Tom feel like he has an authority in anything when she's doing all of these complicated systems throughout the ship.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that is a charitable way of reading it. So, yeah, they were produced by Jim Mallon. He stopped producing them because he said they cost too much, but they didn't cost very much. You can tell by watching them. And also, the thing is, it's not so much that they didn't cost enough. It's probably the case that the merch he made to sell, that this was supposed to inspire you to want to buy, didn't sell because everybody thought this was a really ugly, awful version of the show, and they didn't want that merch, which I'm sure is worth quite a lot now because nobody bought it.
Sure, yeah.
I don't know, maybe not. I haven't seen any of it in a long time. I don't remember what it looks like.
Ooh. You said there was merch, and all I could think in my mind was like, ooh, there's merch? Perhaps I need to do a web search for this merch of which you speak.
And most of the episodes were written by Paul Chaplin, who did the voice of Crow. Jim Mallon wrote one of the episodes, the one that we were just talking about, and Jim also did the voice of GPC, which he had done in the early days of the show, of course. And then they found another local comedian named James Moore to play Tom. That is, I think, the only thing he has done for MST3K VIP. I don't really know anything about him, but that he was a comedian back then and might still be. Probably is. I don't know.
Sure. Why not? It's a good day job.
Sure.
Well, it's a good evening job.
Yeah.
It's not easy to make it your day job.
So I don't know. That's the web series. If you enjoy it, that's fine, I guess. But really.
But Chris can't even forgive me for liking it. So listeners, he's judging you. But know that you're in my camp. I thought they were fine. Did they make me laugh out loud? They did not make me laugh out loud. No.
And it is famously hard to make you laugh out loud, right?
It's easier to make me cry than it is to make me laugh, Chris. Not gonna lie, but seriously.
We had a friend back in the day, listeners. We had a friend who was a stand-up comedian, and Charlotte went to one of her shows, and she laughed at every joke so hard and so delightfully.
They were funny.
It was, and it didn't matter how many times she had heard the jokes before. She laughed afresh each time. And Charlotte has a very delightful and infectious laugh. And so our friend was like, can I pay you to come to every one of our shows? You are magic in the audience. And it's true.
Thank you.
Anyway, many, many, many years later, in between season 11 and 12, another sort of variation on what MST3K could be came out. And I thought we would talk about that because, well, it's also interesting. And I think it's way more successful than the webcomic, than the Flash cartoons were.
Sure.
Mystery Science Theater 3000, the comic.
I agree with you. This is so much more successful. I mean, it actually made me laugh out loud.
There you go.
It is something I would describe as more than just fine. It was really entertaining and cleverly done.
It was. It's a really smart thing. So here's the idea, if you haven't read it before. In the comic, Kinga has invented the bubbleator, and the basic idea is that Max has a bunch of old comic books.
Because, of course, he collects comic books.
Because, of course, he does. And with the Bubbleator, they're able to insert people into the comic books where they can riff away and make jokes, and it'll print out the results, and you'll have a comic book that you can buy at the comic book store, and it'll be delightful.
And beyond just being like riffers inside of the scenes and walking through the scenes, some of them actually take over the parts of the characters inside of the comic as well.
Exactly. So they're primarily on 3 old comic books that are now public domain.
Mm-hmm.
Tom ends up in Johnny Jason, Teen Reporter.
I can't believe 2 first names. Come on. Come on.
Why not?
Johnny Jason.
If it was 3, it would be a serial killer, but 2 is fine.
2 is fine. That's true. It's true. Okay.
Jonah ends up in a superhero comic called Black Cat.
Not to be confused with the Batwoman.
No.
Or the Catwoman, but it's got the same sort of outfit vibes.
Yeah. And then Crow ends up in a horror anthology called Horrific.
Which, if Adam were on the show right now, he would be all over this one because Crow becomes the Crypt Keeper.
Yes, the Crow Keeper.
Which I thought was just going to be a one-off riff, and then it becomes the overarching thing for that whole sequence inside of the comic books. Perfection.
It was really good. And I have to say, I think they did a fantastic job with this, where Tom ends up becoming the main character. You replace Johnny Jason with Tom Servo. And so you've got like this teen reporter boy with Tom Servo's head sticking out of it. It's a very funny look.
It is, absolutely.
But also it goes with, Tom Servo's egotism. And like he is the star of his comic book.
Of course he is. Yes.
Crow ends up as the Crypt Keeper. Crow Keeper, as you say, the omniscient narrator. Crow gets to decide who lives and who dies. Crow is like pulling all the strings of the story and so forth.
And it makes sense for that series because it's like a Crypt Keeper episode where there's many small stories happening inside of the comic instead of one big storyline throughout the whole thing. It's a few horror episodes. So that was interesting. It's been a long time since I've seen a comic that's created that way.
Yeah. Well, and the comic doesn't have a Crypt Keeper analog. That's entirely inserted to add some continuity to it, but it also prevents them from having to like put Crow in a different role in each mini story. So good idea. Smartly done, but also really fits his character. And then Jonah ends up in Black Cat, not as Black Cat, but as like a random secondary character.
Sure. He's the Jimmy to Superman and Lois Lane. The guy who does not know who Superman is, but he's there as part of the storyline to kind of be, the Girl Friday for both of them. That's what Jonah's playing. Just a sidekick type character that doesn't know what's going on. It's perfect for the Jonah persona.
Yeah, he's playing gossip reporter Rick Horn in the original comic. Frankly, being a secondary character totally fits with Jonah's personality.
I agree. It totally fits with Jonah's personality and the outfits he gets to wear as this gossip columnist. They're great, too. He's got like a little ascot. He's got a ridiculous sports coat on. And he changes, right? He changes his outfit halfway through. It's great.
It's so good. And in addition to them, the other bots end up in the comics. So GPC, as well as Growler and M. Waverly, the new bots, end up just sort of in the periphery, making snarky comments on the side. They just say things at the edge of the panel. They're not, main characters, or they're not characters at all. They're just there making jokes. And that was also nice because, I don't know, they never really figured out quite what to do with their new puppets.
I can totally see that.
But in this case, like, it felt like having the extra puppets around made sense. Like, it was good to have a few different, if it had been GPC all the time, that would have been weird. But switching between these 3 less central bots was great.
Yeah. I agree. They were lots of fun inside of the panels. There's the one that Tom is in where he plays the kid reporter. One of the little bots, I think it's M. Waverly, ends up following him onto an airplane and is just holding on to the rudder of the airplane. And as the airplane flies, he gets knocked off and he's just falling. And so there's a many panel sequence where he's a little bit further and he's just like, what's going to happen to me? What? Oh, why I'm still falling? Is anybody going to follow my storyline? Which, of course, we never do.
Yeah. They do this very smart thing, I think, where they're showing you actual panels from actual comics from the 40s and 50s.
Mm-hmm.
And to indicate the riffs, to indicate text bubbles that have changed, they put a little bubble on the speech balloon just to give you a mark. Now, are they being documentarian about this? Is this a critical edition? No, of course not. Are they, willing to cut dialogue or cut a few panels out for flow? Absolutely. Are they willing to change details in a scene to make a joke? Occasionally, yes.
Yes.
Do they do a reasonable job presenting the comics, though? I think so. I was reading the original and the book at the same time just to keep an eye on how they were doing
all
it.
three of them, or just
the whole thing, for all of it, yes.
What'd you think?
I think they did a very responsible job in terms of, it's fine. It's fine what they're doing. They're not destroying the originals. If anything, you now know that Johnny Jason Teen Reporter exists.
It's true, which you would not have before, most like.
It only existed for one independent issue.
Oh my.
It was issue 2 because issue 1 was part of an anthology. It doesn't matter. Comics are weird. But I think they did a really smart job with it. I think that it was really inventive. It is fun if you do the extra mile because you get to see where they cut some things out and you think about why they made some of the choices.
Yeah, but that's the reaction you have for the movies too when you've watched the original movie and watched the MST3K, right? You've watched the original and just been like, it's interesting what they chose to leave out, or oh, that happens in this movie? I can see why they made the choice to take this 5 minutes out or something like that. That's the reaction you've had when you've watched original movies as well as the misted versions. So it's interesting that you're having a very similar reaction to the comic book that they've had to make similar choices for.
Exactly. And some of them, it's sometimes it is actually beneficial to do this because you see that they're making jokes about something which is no longer quite as visible. Mm-hmm. So, for example, one of the Black Cat comics is called The Buddha's Secret.
Oh my, yes.
It doesn't really matter the whole thing, but there's a statuette of the Buddha with the jewels inside, and there's a whole let's go into Chinatown and track down the trafficking and figure out what's going on. And anyway, at one point there's a fight scene with a Chinese person. And in the original comic, the Chinese is represented in word balloons by fake Chinese.
Oh, gracious.
And you don't really want to replicate the racist bit,
No. Although they do call it out, right? As they're going into the comic, they're like, oh, and this one's going to be highly problematic. So they're not shying away from it or cutting that part out to ignore it. They're acknowledging it without, sending up or casting forward the thing happening again.
Yeah, they don't need to show us that. And then it has in each of these little scenes where there would have been something in fake Chinese. Mm-hmm. It's got M. Waverly translating it for you into what it might have meant. But there's nothing to translate in the MST3K version anymore.
Oh, see, because when I was I did not read it with the original right next to it. And that's a fight scene that they're having. And the person who they're fighting is making grunting noises and ugging noises. And so when I'm reading the panel, it looks like that's what he's translating, right? It's a giant person going like, ah, making grunting noises like you do when you're fighting somebody. And so they're putting that into words. But there was actually them saying words in the original.
Well, them saying fake words, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So it's still coherent. You can still read it.
Yeah.
But if you look at the original, there's a little bit of extra thing there. A little extra going on. And that's good. They also cut out in the Johnny Jason comic, they cut out a few moments when Johnny Jason, they go up in a plane.
Yeah.
And Shelley, the movie star that he's doing a story on, she can fly a plane, but she's not supposed to fly it alone because she doesn't really have her license yet. But she goes up anyway, and Johnny Jason / Tom Servo gets really anxious about it. In the original strip, there's a panel that they cut, or a comment that they cut, where Johnny Jason threatens to spank Shelley as soon as the plane lands.
Oh my gosh.
And they don't make that joke. They don't refer to the fact that joke has been cut. No. I mean, joke in the original, comment or whatever.
Yeah. Yes.
And good. They did the right thing. That's a good choice. That's a good editorial call. It's still there. You can see it. They're not burying it from the record, but we don't need that when we're having our good time with the MST3K making fun of things comic.
Yeah, exactly. And that comment in no way contributes to the storyline as a whole. So,
Yeah.
other than she is a character who very loudly admonishes her parents because she acts like an adult to them. And they're like, oh, we just miss our little girl. And she's like, shut up, mom and dad. You suck, and like, so there is very much a Johnny Jason is helping her to become a kid again and grow up. But I don't know, or be more appreciative of the adults in her life in some sort of capacity. That's part of the storyline, but spanking doesn't need to be a part of that storyline.
Right. Was there anything else that you wanted to shout out about the comics? Or
just that I feel like as much care was taken to these comics as would have been to a normal episode. And we could have almost done an actual episode of It's Just a Show by calling out some of the riffs and, doing side conversations about all of this like we do on non-bonus episodes, right? Like they mentioned Helsa Poppin'.
Yeah. They mentioned leeches.
They mentioned the Puma Man. Of course, that made me go, Puma Man? Puma
Yes.
Man. Yes, of course. And like crows on a big wheel inside of it. And I was like, ooh, Chris, we could do a segment on big wheels. I had one when I was growing up. So like I was reading it, thinking about this, this reads like a real episode. It reads like a real episode, and it could have been a whole It's Just a Show episode as well. They talk about the Tower of Terror, and they have the hitchhiking ghosts from Disneyland, like it's just, I don't know. I appreciated that this comic book very much felt like a real episode of the show just inside of a new medium. And I know that's what they were going for, but it's clear with the webtoons, they were not able to be successful with that. And with the comic book, they very much were.
There's one panel early on in the book. It's like page 2 or 3, where it's the first sort of shot you get of everybody on the Satellite of Love hanging out. And they're all doing something in this shot. Jonah is got a flashlight and he's looking at a ceiling fixture. And Crow, who's sort of lying on the ground, assembling an Eye of Sauron tower out of toothpicks and glue.
Yes. Oh my gosh, he was so perfect.
With several like disembodied crow heads and other parts in the background. He's looking up at Jonah and saying, it's just a pasta strainer, lighten up. Which is, of course, a great reference to like the nonsense that's on the back of the original Satellite of Love, right?
Yes, totally. And it's in one of the door sequence rooms. It's the door sequence room where the parts of Crow are over on the left-hand side.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yes, of course. And then Tom Servo's flying in and he says, looks like a speaker. If so, we can play my new record. And he's holding a record that says A Little Touch of Schmervo in the Night. And it's got him in black and white holding some sort of pipe. It looks like a bong, actually. Yes. I don't know what, or candle. It looks like maybe it's a candle. I can't tell.
It's probably a pipe, right? Because he's probably going for that Bing Crosby look or something, right?
Well, he's also got a cigarette in his mouth, so.
Yeah, no, maybe it's more of a Dean Martin than a Bing Crosby then. I don't know. Yes, it's delightful.
Editor Chris here, cutting in to say that I've looked it up since. It is a reference to the Harry Nilsson album, A Little Touch of Schmilson in the Night, in which he is also smoking a cigarette. And it looks like his thumb is on fire. It's very confusing. Anyway, link in the show notes, I guess. Back to the conversation.
Also, let's point out, somehow in the comics, Tom Servo gets to have working hands.
That's also
it's
true.
Great.
That's also, he sometimes does in the show, even though it's also very much not a thing he's allowed to do in the show. We don't worry about such things. GPC's coming in and she's got the sort of bucket of tools around her neck.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And she's critiquing the construction, which is, very her. And then we've got M. Waverly and Growler in the background, and M. Waverly is saying, who creased the mad fold in? And he's holding up the thing. So, you've got some sort of nod to classic comic books.
Yeah, totally.
And then Growler is just like, we all want the same thing, a fistful of 50s and a day without fear.
100% agree. I mean, there's the moral of the world right there.
Exactly. There's a little bumper sticker on the door in the background that says Reptilicus is silly. There's all sorts of other little details going on. Cambot is even there, although we don't really hear much from Cambot and the rest of it. Like, there's so much density of detail and care and love thrown into this one panel.
In the way that you want to have in a comic book, because you have time to sit there and look at the entire panel.
Absolutely. But you know what? In a Homestar Runner episode, you would have had that much detail across it, and you would have wanted to go back and watch it again to catch all the little things that were going on in the background.
Is this what's happening with this? This is another, like, you're wrong about liking the webtoons at all and giving them any positivity, Charlotte? Is that what this whole episode is about?
I'm saying that there is no sign of care at all.
You're right.
In the cartoons. They're little pieces of fluff. They're little things. They're not too offensive, but there's no love. There's no care. There's nothing. It's just the cheap jokes that they wrote quickly and recorded quickly and paid as little as possible because they wanted to sell some merch. And I don't like that.
Totally fine, Chris. You don't have to have any love for the webtoons. To me, they were just like little blips when I could lead into other MST3K things, like a small little snack of something on the lead into coming back into the show. And it was fine. As I say, I'm not going to give it high praise. It's not something that's going to make me donate hundreds of millions of dollars to a brand new Kickstarter, but it was a fine little snack.
All right.
Jeez.
Is there anything else you want to add?
Only that the art styles changed and needed to change for each of the different kinds of comics that they were in. And the artists who were a part of making this comic book did a really good job of integrating characters into the different art styles. And so, like, everything felt really natural. You didn't feel like Jonah was a sore thumb inside of the Black Cat. You felt like he was a part of what was going on. And that just, it was really, it's, as you say, there was so much care taken to it, but not just in terms of honoring our Mystery Science Theater 3000 characters, but also honoring the feel and the look of the original comics. It was very well done.
I mean, so not only did they have to like design the characters to fit in with the different styles of comics, and even to the point where like the Boy Reporter comic has real problems with perspective sometimes, which they make jokes about, but also like they mess up Tom's proportions from panel to panel in the same way that the comic is messing up the characters' proportions. It's really nicely done. So there's all that, but of course these are all actual old comics. So they're not only are they working Tom into it, but they're also completely rewriting or recreating all of the text, right? They have fully replaced the text bubbles with new bespoke text bubbles to keep it consistent over the different comics, which is a bit of a shame a little bit because the horror comics handwritten text is characterful, let's say. It looks very amateur and very characterful in a good, like, that's a positive thing. But you know, now it's in a more traditional font, I suppose. And that's fine. That is a good thing that they did. But that also means for that and for other reasons that they sometimes have to draw parts of the comic that were obscured by text. Or often they take a really long bit of text and they chunk it up into smaller bits to make it flow better.
Yes.
Or they put a short joke in where there used to be a long thing. And so they're constantly filling out parts of the scene that weren't filled out before. There's even a few where they like pull back the camera, so to speak, or zoom in on something where they have to recompose a bit of the scene. And they do a fantastic job with all of it. Like it looks pretty seamless. It's only if I'm looking at both of them that I can tell that something has changed.
Yeah, certainly I didn't pick up on it as somebody who didn't have the original right next to it.
Yeah.
So, and I love one more thing. I love the way that they use Crow inside of one of the scenes where he's not just a character inside of the story interacting with the story, but he's also outside of the text interacting on the page with the page itself. Like he's sitting on one of the big circle panels, dangling his feet inside of it, and he refers to it as a hot tub. And it's like, I love that layer of what they're able to do because it is a print media.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, there's a little inset of a close-up of the guy's face as the horror reveals, and he says no, and there's like bright red light behind him, and he's all monochrome, front lit, under lit. It's all very, very horror dramatic. And yeah, Crow's on it. He's got his feet dangling into it. His perspective is completely off from everything else. And he says, there's nothing like soaking in a nice hot tub of no.
Yes, it's great.
Yeah, there are a few other things where they make slight changes to the comic in order to allow that kind of play as well. And they're all pretty delightful. Later on in that same comic, there's a bit where the main character of the comic gets scared and he sort of collapses through the panels. That is replacing some other art that is all not in the original. Where the guy falls and there's in the MST3K version, he's like the bottom of the comic, oh no, and he falls to the ground. And they are just replacing a very dull panel. They just got rid of something very boring and replaced it with a significantly better joke. So
obviously that's what we come to MST3K for.
Yeah,
right?
And they're not doing that all the time. Just to be clear, occasionally they will do that. I think they do it the right amount. Anyway, that is 2 comic adaptations of Mystery Science Theater 3000. And I'm just going to remind listeners that when we do these special episodes, we don't have any theme music at the end. We just stop abruptly. That is not a mistake. That's just how we end these.
Fine, if we have to.
Theme Squad is overworked.
It's fair. Theme Squad deserves a break, right?
These are usually happening because, for reasons that we may or may not want to disclose, things be busy and real for a moment. And
things be real.
We simply cannot task Theme Squad to come up with more than necessary.
Theme Squad deserves a break too, everybody.